Hello everyone, welcome to Ed Yourself. In this video, we are going to see how to switch the workflow scheme when being shared with multiple projects in JIRA. In order to switch the workflow scheme, let's see one of the example in the JIRA Cloud instance. Now let's talk about a project called Software Developers, and if we want to see the workflows of the software developers, where we can go, it will be in the project settings, right? And if I click on the project settings, we do have one of the option called workflows in the left side panel, and when I click on it, I can see which workflow scheme being used for software developers project, and also we can see the workflow configuration below. Now when we want to make any changes might be, or also if we would like to make a use of an individual workflow scheme for the software developers project, how are we going to switch the scheme? As we can see, the SP software simplified workflow scheme is also being shared by totally 4 projects, right? It is being shared to Ed Yourself, Kanban project, Scrum project, and also with the software developers project. How we can switch the scheme? But we do have one of the button called switch scheme, and when I click on it, we will be able to select all the workflow schemes, out of which we can choose any one scheme, and when I click on switch scheme, automatically the workflow scheme will be switched. Not just one, but in this video I would like to even let you know how we can have the same kind of configuration, how we can create a new workflow scheme. And after creating the new workflow scheme, we will come back to the same page. I will click on switch scheme, and then whatever the newly created workflow scheme with the same configuration, we are going to map it so that we can have an individual workflow scheme with the same configuration. I hope everybody understand the requirement. Now in order to create a new workflow scheme, where we have to go? We have to go to the global level, right? I want to leave the page as it is. In the second tab, let me navigate to the JIRA Cloud instance, and we clearly know how we can navigate to the workflow schemes. We do have one of the option. If I click on the full stop on my keyboard, a search bar will be opened, out of which we have to enter the keyword and we have to navigate to the right path. Alright, we have fall into the workflow schemes. As we can see, currently in our test instance, we do have 2 workflow schemes, and now we are talking about a project called software developers, right? So for the software developers project, we are seeing this particular workflow scheme. As I can see, the same workflow scheme. Now we would like to have the same configuration. So while we are wanting the same configuration, why we need to create a new a new workflow scheme? Instead of creating or adding a new workflow scheme, we do have one of the easiest way to avail the same workflow configuration. We can directly click on the copy of the existing workflow scheme, and then if we just give the rename, we will be having the same workflow configuration, right? So instead of clicking on add workflow scheme, as per our requirement, I will click on the copy. Now a same workflow with this name will be created. Since it is not mapped to the project, it will be stored in the inactive section. So I just take the name, copy. I will elaborate the inactive session, Control F and Control V. As we can see, copy of SP software simplified workflow scheme with the exact same configuration. Alright, now what I want to do, I want to edit and I want to rename it. So it is going to be for the software developers project. Let me give the project key, and it's going to be a workflow scheme, right? So let's keep the name simple, and we have seen the exact same configuration like before. Now we have successfully added, or maybe created, or even I can say copied the new workflow scheme in the global level. Alright, now coming back to the project page. Now it is the time for us to switch the scheme. I want to switch the scheme, and whatever the workflow scheme that we have copied in the global, I will be selecting that. so that the newly copied workflow scheme name will be displayed here. The same configuration will also be there. The only difference is it will not be shared by 4 projects. It only be shared by the software development project. Alright, by clicking on the switch scheme, and we have to choose ST workflow scheme. And then if I click on associate, it will ask me to click again. And then we can directly see the new workflow scheme, which is ST workflow scheme with the same kind of configuration. And this is how we can map the workflow scheme to a project, or we can say this is how we can switch the workflow scheme, or also we can say this is how we can copy the existing workflow scheme and renaming it and then mapping it to a project. The concept is overall same. When a workflow scheme is being mapped by a number of projects, when we would like to make the changes in the current workflow scheme, or maybe when we are wanting to have an individual workflow scheme, this is the procedure that we have to follow. So going back to the global, just to have a look, if I navigate to the workflow schemes in the global level, now I clearly see there are 3 active workflow schemes. The earlier software simplified workflow scheme SP is being shared only by 3 projects. Earlier it is being shared by 4 projects, right? Now the 4th project, software developers, is using the newly copied workflow scheme, ST workflow scheme. So this is how we can switch the workflow scheme when being shared with multiple projects in JIRA. If you find the video helpful, please like the video and also share it with your friends, and do not forget to subscribe to EduYourself channel for many more good videos, and I see you all in the upcoming video shortly. Thank you.